All right, welcome back to ABA exam review and the continuation of our RBT practice questions series where we're going through another set of questions together and breaking them down. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. Please like and subscribe. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials, including our combo pack. When you pass your exam, let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. Work hard, study hard. Let's get going. A manager is observing employee engagement during a work meeting. Every 5 minutes, the manager checks to see whether each employee is actively participating, asking questions, taking notes, and records the behavior. What type of measurement procedure is being used? So we start with a measurement question. And with the measurement question, we always want to discover or determine, I should say, what behavior we're measuring. In this case, the manager is looking at employee engagement. He's looking at active participation, which includes asking questions and taking notes. Now, when is the manager recording a response? Because that's really the key thing about measurement. For example, in duration measurement, we're looking at the length of a single response. And something like enter response time, we're looking at time in between responses. Here, the manager is waiting every 5 minutes to see if participation is occurring. In other words, we've broken down this time into intervals. We have 5 minute intervals, and the manager is checking at the end of each interval to see if a behavior is occurring. So when we are taking measurement on behavior and we're looking at the end of an interval, what type of measurement is that? A, partial interval recording. With partial interval recording, the behavior has to occur at any point in those 5 minutes in that interval. Here, it's the very end of it, right? Every 5 minutes, he's checking. So only at the end of 5 minutes is a check being done. B, whole interval recording. With whole interval recording, the behavior has to happen the whole entire interval, or in this case, 5 minutes. Now, what is C, play check? Play check is planned activity check. And what is that? Planned activity check is just the group version of momentary time sampling. And in this case, we have multiple people, right? He's checking on each employee. So instead of using momentary time sampling, which looks at a single person at the end of the interval, he's using a planned activity check, where every 5 minutes, he's checking on every single person. So if you see play check, if you see planned activity check, that is just a group version of momentary time sampling. And this is a form of momentary time sampling, which is being used. And then D, rate. Rate, of course, is frequency over time. We're not taking necessarily a frequency count. This is not a continuous measurement. What's occurring is momentary time sampling, but in a group. So the more accurate answer is play check or planned activity check. You pull up to the Taco Bell drive-thru and prepare to place your order. However, no one greets you over the intercom. You say hello, and then 20 seconds later, someone says, "Can I take your order?" What does the 20 seconds most represent in the context of this question? So the question wants to know about the 20 seconds. The 20 seconds happens here. Well, what do we know about the context of the 20 seconds? We know you got to the drive-thru, no one greeted you, and so you say hello. From the time you said hello, 20 seconds passed, and someone finally said, "Can I take your order?" So it took somebody 20 seconds to respond to the SD of hello. So when we're measuring the time in between an SD and a response, what do we call that? A, inter-response time. Inter-response time is the time in between responses. Here, we only have an SD and a response. So what we're looking for is latency. Latency is the time between the SD and the first response. And that's what we have here. We have our SD of hello, 20 seconds pass, and then someone responds. Rate, again, is frequency over time. The 20 seconds is a length of time, and it's not measuring there's no count involved, right? Rate does not fit. And then D, time sampling. Time sampling is a form of measurement. 20 seconds is not a form of time sampling measurement. 20 seconds is just representing how long it took for somebody to respond to your SD. And so what the 20 seconds most represents in the context of this question is B, latency. A physical therapist is teaching a client to climb a set of stairs. During each session, the therapist has the client practice all steps in the sequence, lifting your leg, placing it on the step, transferring weight, etc., with prompts provided as needed until the skill is mastered. What type of chaining procedure does this most represent? With chaining, what we want to figure out is what steps are being taught in the process. If we're looking at something like forward chaining, we're teaching that first step and then we're prompting. Then we're teaching the first and second step and then we're prompting. We're doing that until all steps are mastered. With backwards chaining, we're teaching that last step, let's say the fifth step, and then we're prompting before that. And then we're prompting up into the fourth and fifth step. So you can see with forward chaining, we're starting at the beginning, teaching individual steps. With backwards chaining, we're prompting through and then teaching individual steps from the last part of the chain. In this case, this physical therapist is teaching the client to climb a set of stairs, and they're doing all steps every time. Prompts are only being provided as needed until the whole skill is mastered. And so with total task chaining, we're going to be doing every single step and trying to master every step and only prompting as necessary. Why would we total task chain? You might total task chain if your client or learner is very competent, if they already know several steps of the chain, if the chain isn't all that difficult. If you think you can teach the whole chain without having to break it into forward or backwards chaining, total task chaining might be the play because you're going to work on every step every time and try to master the whole skill all at once. And the D-task analysis, the task analysis comes before the task chain, right? Because the task analysis creates the task chain. So when we ask what type of chaining procedure this most represents, it's not going to be a task analysis because we're actually teaching. So what type of chaining procedure does this represent? That's going to be C, total task chaining. Luke is trying to determine the best possible reinforcement schedule for his current client. As of now, the client is told to work for 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, the client receives a 5-minute break and then works 15 more minutes. This cycle repeats until session is over. What type of reinforcement schedule is demonstrated here? So basic reinforcement schedules, right? We have fixed schedules and variable schedules, and we have ratio schedules and interval schedules. A fixed schedule means the amount is not changing. Variable, it's changing. A ratio schedule is dependent on responses, where an interval schedule is dependent on time. So let's start with fixed versus variable first. We have Luke, who's looking at these reinforcement schedules. The client is working for 15 minutes, gets a break. 15 minutes, gets a break. So is the amount changing? No, every single time it's 15 minutes as far as the requirement goes. Now, let's ask ourselves, are we dealing with a ratio here or an interval? Well, a ratio is dealing with responses. Here, reinforcement is dependent on time. 15 minutes, every 15 minutes, we are getting reinforced. So what kind of schedule is demonstrated here? A, non-contingent reinforcement. Well, it's not non-contingent because the client must work to get rewarded. So it can't be non-contingent. A contingency is in place. B, fixed ratio. It is fixed, right? It's not changing, but it's based on time. Can't be ratio. C, variable interval. It's fixed, right? So it can't be C. It has to be D. It's fixed because it's a set amount, and it's an interval because it's based on time. So the type of reinforcement schedule here is going to be D, fixed interval. If you get basic reinforcement schedule questions and you get confused or lost, break it into different parts. The child's caregiver implements a reinforcement program to reduce whining behavior at home. While whining decreases at home, it increases significantly at school, where no reinforcement program is in place. What behavioral concept does this scenario illustrate? This question came up a few times last week when talking to a couple different people, so I thought we'd go over it again. We have a behavioral concept question, so it's basically a definition question. In this case, we have a caregiver implements a reinforcement program at home. Successful. Whining decreases at home, but it increases significantly at school where no reinforcement program is in place. What do we call it when we implement some sort of, let's say, reinforcement schedule in one environment and the behavior changes, but then no schedule in the other environment and the behavior goes the other way? Because this is to be expected. What is that concept? A, extinction. Well, this is not signifying extinction. Is extinction being used? It's unclear. We're looking at the fact that behavior has changed at home and it's going in the opposite direction at school. So when behavior goes in one direction in one environment and another direction in another environment, and there's a reinforcement program or a program has been changed in one environment and not the other, we're going to call that behavioral contrast, excuse me. So in this case, there's a contrast in the behavior, right? Reinforce or whining is going down at home, but going up at school. C, stimulus generalization. No indication of generalization is occurring in this question. And then D, negative reinforcement. We don't know what kind of reinforcement is being used, only that reinforcement is used in one of the settings. In the other setting, it's not. So what behavioral concept does this scenario illustrate? B, behavioral contrast. Thanks for watching. Check out btexamreview.com for all of our study materials. When you pass your exam, please let us know so we can include you in the Sunday shout out. As always, work hard, study hard, and we'll see you soon.